Hey guys, welcome to People I Think Are Cool. I'm your host, Liz Reed, one part of the art duo Cuddles and Rage, and this is my show where I interview cool, interesting, creative people. If you are listening on your podcast app of choice, you've been listening for a while, then you might have heard a different word from my intro, which is show. That's because I have changed to doing audio and video. I found with my interviews during the pandemic, more and more people were just like hopping on the video side of it instead of audio only. I was like, you know what? It is nice to see a smiling face. So I was like, hey, let's try something new. So now I'm doing both. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this new format. And let's get into our guest. Today, I'm talking to McLeod Chapman. And let me tell you, I was so excited to finally get to talk to him because we have a ton of the same friends and acquaintances. And he's somebody that, I feel like I should have known for a longer time or I've met by now. So to spend a whole hour with him talking about writing and his books really just kind of made me feel closer to somebody I already felt close to. In this interview, we talk about his new book that comes out April 6th of this year, Whisper Down the Lane. And when he was describing it to me, it just gave me chills because it's one of those stories where it could happen in real life. And those are always the most terrifying stories. So go pre-order that. It's one that I already have on my GoodReads watch list and I've already pre-ordered and I can't wait for April 6th. Seriously, not just saying that because it is creepy. And I should mention that my interview with Clay took place at the end of 2020. It just seems like right now with everything changing day to day, it's important to know the context of when a conversation's happening. Enjoy this chat with the super cool Clay McLeod Chapman. Okay, so we talked before the recording about how we know the same people and we've circled around each other and we were supposed to meet at AwesomeCon this year. So, I know. Rest in peace, all the cons. So I'm glad that we're finally getting to talk to each other. The one thing that I didn't know about you that I would just love it if you briefly went through is how did you get into writing? I know everybody's I've been writing since I was 4. Cool. How did you get into writing professionally?
Professionally? I feel like there's the 4-year-old version where I was failing 6th grade English.
Oh.
I was one of those students. I was a bad student. If there was a window, my attention totally went out it. And I was failing as early as 6th grade. And my teacher pulled me aside one day and she's kind of said hey, Clay, I like you and everything, but I don't want you in my class next year. So
she said, I don't want you?
No.
Okay, I was fire that teacher.
I was one of those, I think it was kind of one of those proto skater guys,
Oh.
I know it's really hard to imagine, but the floppy hair and the baggy jeans.
Yeah.
She struck a deal with me where she said, if you do something outside of class that's kind of in tandem to what we're doing in class, I'll give you some extra credit. There was a playwriting contest. I had never written a play, never thought about writing a play, never wanted to write a play. But I just wanted to pass 6th grade English. So I wrote, the most craptacular play you've ever read and sent it off. Got my extra credit, passed, moved on to 7th grade. But a month later, I get this letter in the mail saying, congratulations, you won. And this was in the state of Virginia where I'm from.
Oh.
And, I get this, we got to spend the summer kind of with other students from the state and we're getting our plays produced by professional actors. And it totally opened up this world to me where, I fell in love with writing. And, I entered that contest year after year after year, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, all the way up to 12th. And, still failing English, but school was kind of in session for me during these summer retreats with professional writers and actors. And it kind of led to an education in writing. So that's the kind of the 4-year-old version. That seems like
an answer that needed to be had, though, because it's really unique that you would go to like these writing camps at such a young age, and that your teacher treated it as an alternative versus like writing you off.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, I think I believe, I mean, like to this day, like I hold that her in the highest regard. I mean, if it wasn't for her, like I have no idea where I would be. But Miss Royer, 6th grade English, Suzanne Royer. Yeah. But then I get to college and, I'm still writing, and I'm writing these like, bizarro, like I love short stories and I love first person narratives and I love theater. So there's this weird kind of hodgepodge of like, I'm writing these first person narratives, like Call Me Ishmael. But you get an actor behind it and they become kind of like shake and bake theater. So like all through college, all I was doing with myself was writing these like really bizarro, kind of dark, creepy monologue diatribes of like Poe-esque characters just kind of going off on their own tangents, much like I am. And I said to the publishing people, these are short stories, and I would say to the theater people, these are monologues, and they kind of, the Venn diagram was me. And I lucked out. Like my first book was a collection of these short stories. And it got, I was going to graduate college and I had no friggin' clue what I was going to do with myself. And so I like hunkered down in the Barnes and Noble with that writer's market, because 200 years ago, I was still, we still like looked at those telephone books, and I just flipped through and found 30 different agents who I thought might be interested in what I had to offer. And I sent off a story with a letter saying, please, 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 save me. And 29 of them wrote back and said, thanks, but no thanks. But one of them wrote back and she said, yeah, this is cool. And, total long story short, total Cinderella story. Like two weeks after meeting this agent, she got me a 2-book contract with Hyperion, with Disney. And this was like 3 weeks before graduating from undergrad, from college. And I got to enter into the real world with this book deal. And it was for these crazy, icky, toxic short stories, all kind of yammery, monologue-y thingies that I could perform to people. So...
No, that's incredible. I mean, especially with the 2-book deal, that doesn't really happen. Like that, I don't think that we kind of had the same thing where we had got a 2-book deal with HarperCollins. Yeah. But then looking back, like, what's happening to you? I didn't know much about like the industry to know that like that doesn't really happen.
And it will never happen again.
I know, especially now. Like, did you know that was special at that time?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, like, it was special to me because all of a sudden it was like, this is the world that I'm living in. And oh my God, this is amazing. And like, do I get to do this for the rest of my life? And what I didn't know at the time and remained blissfully ignorant to for as long as I possibly could, it's a miracle to get a book on the shelf, like hands down. It is a miracle. It is an even bigger miracle to get that book off the shelf and in the reader's hand.
So true.
Like, nobody buys my books. Nobody bought my books. Like nobody like.
I bought your book.
Wow. I mean, like I got these books out there, and it just kind of like, it happened, and then it went, and then there's that moment where it's like, hey, can we do this again? And then I think whoever the button pushers or the penny pinchers are kind of said like, oh wow, you sold 0 books. No. It was a lesson in like, oh wow, like I retroactively paid my dues for years where like nobody wanted to publish, like you have this like scarlet letter, the scarlet sales tally on your chest for the rest of your publishing career. And nobody wanted to touch me because of what is it called? SoundScan or whatever the book equivalent is to your Amazon sales tally.
Yeah, like your score or whatever.
Yeah.
Like a Q score for an actor or something.
So I had to kind of like figure out like how do I get to tell stories. And I got 5 years of like blissful ignorance of thinking this was going to be life. Because I stretched that. I mean, like when you're 22 and all you're eating is mac and cheese and tuna fish, like you can do that. And I just needed to figure out how to keep doing it. And it took a long time, but like I started to get published again. And
did they ask you about your record? Like, did that come up at all to be like, well, we're taking a risk on you?
At least not directly. I started doing I did a trilogy of middle grade books of younger reader books, novels. And it was amazing. And this was like 2013. It was the best experience writing the first book in this trilogy, because I didn't tell anybody. Like it was one of these things. I wrote these stories in Rest Area, the first book, the collection of short stories, and I would do these readings anywhere and everywhere for years and years. And I did this reading at a birthday party in like 2006, and someone like at that birthday party was a children's book editor, and fast forward to 2009, I'm at a going away party, and I bump into this children's book editor, and she's like, "Hey, I saw you 3 years ago do this reading at a birthday party. Have you ever wanted to write for younger readers, for kids?" And I hadn't up to that point, but when anyone asks you a question like that, you say yes.
Right. You're like, I'll figure it out later.
Yeah. And so we took lunch, and I pitched the ideas, and she was like, that is a good idea. And if you do that and you write it and I read it and I like it, I'll take it. I'll go to bat for it. And so like I wrote it, and I I give it to her, and she was like, "No, I don't like it." and so
That's what tends to happen.
Yeah. So all of a sudden I have this thing that I wrote that the person who was kind of the impetus for it didn't like. But I submitted it, and like it got into Disney's hands. Disney again takes me back to write 3 there, and they were like, "We like this, but can it be a trilogy?" And you say, "Of course, yes, it can be a trilogy." And all of a sudden I'm writing a trilogy of these novels, which was like, it was like a Fight Club for 7th graders. What?
Yeah. So not as far as Battle Royale, but Fight Club.
I mean, I wish I could have gone Battle Royale, but it less head explodey, more protractors and compasses. And
they had a frying pan.
But yeah, so you just I feel like I have opened myself up to the notion that I have no control. I want to tell stories. Yeah. I have a lot of stories that I feel like I really, really want to tell. And every so often there's like that weird intersection where you meet somebody who wants you to tell those stories, and they let you. And I just have to roll with it, like you have to ride the ride, and you get thrown off, and then you climb back on. Right. And then you die, and then someone will say they wrote this much stuff. And then that's when you make your millions, and you're like, what the hell? I didn't even get to enjoy it. I love this idea of like a body of work. And I will find a way to survive until I don't. And then somebody will be like, oh, wow, this guy wrote all these things. And maybe some of it will be good. But I have no control. No control. I'm just
Like,
riding the wave.
have you seen the documentary Stone Reader?
No.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's a little slow, but it's basically like about this guy that wrote a book that like one guy, the documentarian, loved and like goes on this journey to try and find him.
Is it the same documentary filmmaker who did Hoop Dreams? Or am I making that up?
I think so. I feel like that came together. I know that the same guy did Stevie.
Yes.
So, because
It was like a book that came out like in the 60s or 70s. And it got out
yes,
of print. And he,
yes,
yeah, I have seen it.
I love his documentaries. Although Stevie's a hard one to recommend. You're like, you have to be in a certain mood, but it's a good documentary.
Stone Reader is like, it's uplifting because you want to believe as a writer, like, oh, there's one person out there who's going to make a documentary about my book. Even though it's out of print, there's got to be one person out there who believes that it's like, this is their book. And whether they make a movie about you or not, like you got to believe that person, they're out there somewhere.
Yeah, but you want feature film money. You don't want documentary money. If you want to leave any inheritance.
To heck with feature film money. I just want the YouTube video of the one person with like 13 followers who says, this is the best, this is my favorite book,
Oh, I'll make one for you.
What's that? There's a musical named Title of Show, which is about it's a musical about writing a musical. And I'm going to get this all wrong, but like there's a song in it with a lyric in it that's basically, I would rather be 10 people's number one favorite thing than 100 people's 10th favorite thing.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I heard that and I thought that is, I subscribe to that. Yeah.
I agree with that wholeheartedly because, I think that especially right now, nowadays, there are so many different interests. Like we were talking about, would he let me call him mutual friend Glenn? I'm doing it. He's good. I've talked to him once, so that means we're mutual friends. But that's like how I found him through his music, and so like there's just, and I feel like there are people who might not know about his music, but to me, like his music is everything. And we just have so much to pick from that you really do need like your super loyal people to be there to support you. And that's really all you need because it's like with people, I'm on TikTok. And so like the people on there, when they have like 5 million followers, it's like, at what point does it not feel, I mean, that's great, but like, at what point do you not feel connected to the people that you're engaging with?
I love this band called Bark Market. And nobody's heard of Bark Market. My favorite writer is this poet by the name of I, spelled A-I. Oh. And not many people know I. And it's like, if I'm being like completely honest with myself and I say and I ask myself like, who's my favorite band? What's my favorite movie? What's my favorite, author? Ultimately, it's usually that it's like something over here that a smaller pocket of people like or have even heard of. And I think to myself, like, I'm that band's favorite. I'm their fan. I'm the person that like, I will be the person to be like, have you heard of this guy or have you heard of this author or this? And you just have to have faith that maybe out there someone is saying the same thing about you, and you may never know or meet them or but I want to believe.
No, I mean, I believe you totally have that. And that leads into what we were talking about earlier with Jane Friedman and her like business of being a writer. I think that's the exact title. I should get that right before I talk to her. but when I was reading that book, I actually thought about you the whole entire time because I feel, I know you're like, what? Well, I feel like your career reflects that in my opinion, because I feel like I see you everywhere. You're not just writing books, like you also write for like Fangoria. And you're also like doing stories for like Tales Beyond the Pale, like, and you even act like you were on your own audiobook, which I was shocked. And I don't know if they put your name last, so you didn't seem like too like, yeah, I'm doing everything.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, your hands in so many buckets, and that's really how you have to get your name out there. And then also, I mean, I don't know if you make income from the other things. Do you get paid extra when you do your audiobook?
I mean, not sales wise, but like you get paid for doing the recording.
Okay, so like here's some
It's not-
donuts.
I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's a total master of none mentality, and I don't know if anyone else would agree or would say this is a good thing, but I don't know. I feel as if, there is a certain kind of sense of like, if you want to get out there, you just say yes. You say yes to any opportunity, whether that's writing for comics or writing fiction or for film or for theater, and you meet other people who either they love what you do, or they like your voice, or they you mentioned Glenn, and I met Glenn because of our, we did this thing, and it kind of led to like him saying like, hey, I do this thing, do you want to do this thing? And I don't know, like I feel like if we're creating a tapestry of artists, you never know where it's going to take you. But it leads to writing for comic books and writing for, I mean, you just name it. And like, I don't know if I do any of it well enough to be like the guy who, like, I feel as if you see Terrence Malick or Sofia Coppola, and it's like this is the thing, like they come out with this thing and it is perfect. It's polished and it's beautiful, and people will be talking about it because it's the thing that we all want to talk about. For me, it's kind of like, I'm going to splarf something out and it's going to be rough and raw and a little punk rock maybe. And it you'll feel the hard edges to it, and it won't be polished, but it'll be like hand carved. And it's almost like, because of the imperfections and because of the rawness of it, that it is real or organic, but it's from the heart. So yeah.
No, that's so true. I mean, because like the stories that I've read from you, they are very punk rock. Like there's always a moment where I'm like, ooh, did that just happen? And they're surprising. And when I just got done with the audiobook version of the remaking, and yeah, with that one I was like, this has to be a TV show, or this has to be, I know, right? Like I just want to I'll get you an entertainment lawyer. But yeah, I mean, because your stories, the characters that you write, I think it's really hard for people to nail down the voice, and that's always like the first thing you hear in like a writing class, is to make sure like you don't even have to say like, Clay said. You want the reader to know like who it is by the way you write them. But you have mastered that, and especially with the formatting of that book, I think that stands out. But no movie, no TV show.
I mean, what am I allowed to say?
That's good.
It has been optioned by someone.
Yeah.
And they are, I think that's all I can say. I can't.
Well,
it's in process of something, and but the process has, God bless coronavirus.
Yeah.
It has slowed everything down. But it is a long gestating thing that could potentially become a thing, but the thing that it wants to be needs a few people to say yes, and then we're off to the races.
Yeah.
But it's at least a thing that like someone has said, we got it. We're doing something with it. So this is the vaguest answer.
No, that makes me so happy, because it is one of the stories where you can just see how somebody would produce it. The story just, I mean, it's, do you write screenplays too? I mean, yeah, you do. I know that because your movie with Glenn. But that's how it read to me. It read like a screenplay in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the remaking was so much fun. I mean, that was like, love it or hate it. Like that's the story that I wanted to tell.
Yeah.
And I think like for me, like I wanted to like, I don't know, like I wanted it to be so stripped down and so bare bones and kind of cyclical and like, have you ever seen Let's Scare Jessica to Death?
No, is that no?
You gotta like if it will become your favorite film. It's that's my movie. Like Bark Market is my band. I is my author. Let's Scare Jessica to Death is my movie. And I mean, the remaking is basically just fanfic for Let's Scare Jessica to Death. So it is the most beautiful 70s low budget horror film, and it is it's gorgeous, but it's all about the soundtrack, and it's all about this like overlaying dubbing of voiceovers, and it just feels gauzy, and it feels like it's just a veil of sonic awesomeness, and I can't recommend it enough. So yes,
okay, I'm gonna.
Yeah,
that sounds perfect. I'm just thinking about like, do you follow Brian Sauer?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I wonder if he's ever like held it up and talked about it, especially now that he's doing videos. But before, we get too far down the line here, I wanted to talk about your new book that's out for pre-order now.
Yeah.
Whisper Down the Lane, which I usually I try and always pre-order, so I'll double check. I'll make sure I do that, because on like what I think with like fellow creators, like I'm a big believer, and like just don't think about supporting it, like do support them, because people don't realize that like every stream, every purchase does make a huge difference.
Yeah,
especially with pre-sales.
Yeah, and where we are right now makes me feel like there's nothing but pre-sale. Yeah. I no one said this to me, or this is never a conversation I've had, but like I feel as if the whatever word of mouth, like this is all we have now. I feel like I am living in the Matrix, and I just need a bookseller to be like, I need my Neo, or my why am I blanking on Lawrence Fishburne's character? I need the person to kind of bring in that kind of like, we're in the Matrix and all of the racks of guns come out. Instead of racks of guns, they're bookshelves. And I just need someone to be like, boom. That's my. Sorry.
I only know red pill, blue pill.
I'm just gonna take the purple.
Oh, purple. Okay, whatever.
Whisper Down the Lane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is how do I describe it? It is a psychological spooky thriller about the Satanic Panic era, the period in the 80s, where a young boy tells a white lie about his teacher in kindergarten. And that little white lie starts to ripple out and ripple out and ripple out until the kind of paranoia and pandemonium of the time and the period takes over, and all of a sudden this little boy can't get the lie back. He can't take it back, and it leads to a national crisis, a moral crisis of parents and families and lawmakers and mayors and governors believing that there is a secret cult of Satan worshipers inside our public school system.
Oh, yay.
And, yeah, as you do. But imagine that boy now in his 30s, completely moved on from his past, changed his name, left it all behind, erased who he is, no longer that child, completely new identity, a teacher, and suddenly the lies that he told as a kid on the witness stand suddenly come back to haunt him and are becoming real. So, the things he said as a kid that were completely fabricated are now things that are happening around him, and nobody knows what it is, but he does. And somebody knows who he is. And the past is coming back to haunt him.
Oh, as it does. That's terrifying because it sounds like something that actually does happen and could happen. And I think that just strikes a nerve because, and then thinking about your title, I mean, it is perfect for it because, Whisper Down the Lane, like I think because like the last one was kind of like ghost story-ish, I was like, oh, maybe it's like that. But then to know, it almost feels deeper because it's like something so simple and as innocent as like a white lie, especially when you're a child. Yeah. So then to grow into this like story that is a whisper down the lane. I mean, we all know we had somebody in our neighborhood where they were just kind of weird. Like where I grew up in Kingwood, we had Birdman, where he ran with his arms out. And like nobody knows like why he did that. And it's not a terrible white lie, but we just know what somebody else told us and we've carried that on with us forever. He might have had a good reason to do that, but
but that's the thing. It's like your local folklore. It's it's the urban legends of your block. And I don't know, like they have a certain permanence. I mean, you can tell that story today, right now. And it now I have it.
Spread it around.
but they're transmutable. They push on beyond us. And sometimes you can control them, and a lot of the times you can't. And I mean, I think where we are right now, politically, culturally, you can see that there is an unbelief, a thing that is an untruth, but it persists, it exists, and you can't stop it from existing. So for all the pizza gators and missing ballots, like people will believe what they want to believe. So,
that's true. And I think that when I see people getting kind of like called out for on social media or like whatever, YouTube or Reddit, like when somebody's taking a video of somebody who's there's my doesn't know they're being recorded, I always wonder. I mean, a lot of times like the person's being horrible, but then when that person grows up as an adult and like maybe the same thing happens to them, like how they would feel about it, because that's kind of the same thing. Like you can't take that back. Yeah. Even though it's a video, not a whisper.
Yeah. I mean, thinking in terms of the technology of now, that everybody has their cameras ready, and something that you do as a child, a kid, if that moment is captured and I mean, it's uploaded on the Facebook or TikTok or wherever, it is no longer your moment. It is no longer a private thing. It is the world's, and it's terrifying to me. So yeah. Yeah.
Well, I only have a couple more questions for you, so I don't take up all your time, because you've been so generous. When you talked about technology, that reminded me of a thought that I had when I was listening to your book. And like it's the same thing with Mattress King was your right? Oh my God, that was one where I was like, oh, are they? But with both those stories and I'm assuming with your other ones too, you handle technology really well because, you're always told to like kind of be a bit more evergreen with whatever you create, whether it's like the slang or the technology, which always gets hard because slang becomes debatable. Like nobody's saying psych on their book and like thinking that that's going to like stay. But I've been told that the word cool is too modern or dated, which is it? Do the kids say cool stuff? I do. Yeah. But anyway, so with your dialogue and especially with your like addressing technology, you have a great way of like telling the story, but then not dating yourself. I'm sure that's conscious, but like, can you go through how you work through that?
I mean, that is a rosy way of talking about the way that I write. And I really appreciate that because I feel as if a less rosy interpretation of it would be of like writing outside of time. I this is going to be totally highfalutin, but like you brought up Mattress King, and which is one of my favorites. Like I love that because it was like taking somebody who I've seen on the street, a individual who, you know, living here. I live here in New York, and you know, bed bugs are rampant, and you know, you can see people abandoning their mattresses in front of their apartments, and yet there's an individual who will come by in their van and scoop those mattresses up, gussy them up, and sell them for a steal. And you know, no one will ever. The people who buy them won't know that they were bed buggy until they get bed bugs. And I thought, like, who would be that guy? Who's that person? So when we got to write the Tales from Beyond the Pale episode, I thought of this like Falstaff kind of character, like a kind of like oafish buffoon, but elevated in his speak. So there's a certain kind of almost Shakespearean quality to it, or a certain loquaciousness that kind of goes beyond common parlance or vernacular. So I just wanted to take a person who is here, but like elevate their speaking, their language, so that it almost feels kind of transcendent. And then I had Larry Fessenden perform that, you know, for the show, and he just lifted it to a higher level. So, I mean, ultimately, I think the answer is that you just have to get really amazing people behind your words to make your doggerel sound elevated, to transcend your doggerel or something, maybe.
So with the technology side of it, how do you address that though?
When you say technology, is it that you think that I'm writing about the tech? Because like,
no,
I find it amazing that like Tales from Beyond the Pale is a radio show with, you know, it's basically radio plays for the digital age, which is so archaic and so kind of like frustratingly, you know, Glenn and Larry are gleeful in their like their kind of persistence of like, we're doing this antiquated, archaic thing in a thoroughly futurist, modern, you know, they're regressive in their technology.
I guess it's more like to be like text messaging and stuff like that. And, you know, I think always the hardest thing when somebody is writing like a horror movie traditionally is like, how do we get rid of the phones? Oh, my battery's dead. Oh, I don't get service. You're like, okay, now I don't have to deal with them calling for help, which didn't come up in either of your stories, but is it just something that like you don't really do the phone conversations?
I mean, I definitely don't like writing about cell phones. That's for sure.
Right. It's very boring, especially when you see it typed out. Like I read a lot of romance novels, and there's a lot of typing in those. Even then, it feels not intimate.
But with the remaking, it was a choice of writing about other forms of technology. So like, in Quirk was amazing. My editor was amazing, where they said, you know, go to town. Like, let's make this feel like a, not audiovisual, but there's a certain kind of cross-pollination of multimedia that like it's a movie and it's a podcast and it's a campfire tale. And it's like, you know, we're looking specifically at the modes of storytelling. Like that's the thing. Like it had to be, you know, take the oral tradition and pinpoint it and map it out every 20 years of like, this is the campfire tale of the 50s. And now what is that version of storytelling in the 70s? Mm-hmm. Oh, let's do a 70s grindhouse drive-in schlocky horror film. And like, okay, what is the you know, fast forward 20, 25 years later? Like what's the sleek, polished, Scream style, you know, Wes Craven version of that? And, you know, go, you know, just keep going and going and going. And like, you know, I mean, if the remaking sold well and did well, like maybe there would be a sequel that would be like 20 more years later, 20 more, like, just like it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Which is why, movie, TV series, whatever could potentially be the future for the remaking. It just has to keep going. That's the thing. Like, I think like it starts off here, but like it has to keep evolving and like almost like becoming something new and different. And, it just has to shed its skin. Hopefully. So.
No, that makes sense. And then when you're talking about the podcast part, like, I hope that's not like spoilery, but I did not see that coming.
Oh yeah?
No, I didn't. Like, and it was amazing. Because it is like the stuff that we binge nowadays. Like, like Unsolved Mysteries are back. Like, I prefer the originals, but it's the same thing as like feeding off somebody else's pain.
Yeah.
In a sad way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There's, whether it's there for the kind of like surface read or not, like I feel like the remaking is about ownership of stories and who has the right to tell these stories. And nobody should tell that story. I shouldn't have told that story. Like I don't feel like I'm my hands are not clean within this process, and I feel like the reader of this book should feel like there is a certain profanity of the fact that I'm the one who has written this book, and that like I should be like, if there is a sequel, I'm the one who's going to die.
Oh my God, it's meta. I just realized that. Okay, I feel like so slowly, but yeah. Oh my gosh, stay away. I don't want the curse.
I mean, this is where we're at right now, where it's like, who has the right to tell these stories? And I feel like a lot of times, like, particularly with Hollywood, particularly with, I don't know, like nobody, like these are, I don't know. Yeah. So yes, no, like this is not, it's not my story. And, in any just world, the truth, the urban legend that this story, that the novel is based upon, I would meet my end.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, it's going to extend it a little longer, but I'm making sure you're good on time. Are you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Oh, we're getting close to 5. Okay, I'll wrap it up. Just side note, when you're talking about stories to tell, I've said this to like a few people close to me, like when it gets brought up to do like true crime stuff, but these people that basically my grandma's preacher and his wife, they were murdered by a serial killer that's like one of the famous serial killers that you always see come on the shows and stuff, and that's where I feel like it's not their story to tell. And it gets really disturbing because those shows are always about the killer and never about the victims.
Yeah.
And like when I go to the FBI museum, I see their faces on display as like, here are all the people he killed. Like, what the hell? These are real people. So yeah, that's where it hits home, because although I too have watched those kind of shows, and I know that somebody else feels that way about the person I'm watching.
Yeah.
It just doesn't feel real until you experience it.
Have you ever thought about kind of telling that story, like being like, this is my perspective, and this like, in this way of I have a personal connection to this story. I'm on this side, looking that way, where everybody else is looking this way. I want you to kind of recalibrate your point of view so that you can see the people on this side.
Yeah, I haven't, but if you want to, I won't sue you. But no, that's a good point, because my favorite stories. Is it the Joker? Like when that comic is about the henchman, it's not about the Joker. It's about the guy that works for the Joker, and those stories are always the best.
Yeah. Has there ever been a story about, in this kind of podcast, true crime, sensationalist culture that we are now in, where someone says, I am the granddaughter, the grandchild, grandson, son, nephew, whatever. Like this was my family that was murdered, and you've taken this story away from me and turned it into some sensationalist tap. Has that ever been done? Has there ever been that? There has to be, right? Like,
I mean, I feel like the closest thing we got to that was like Sharon Tate in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but that was not from the perspective that you're saying. I mean, but that did feel like he's taking somebody whose loved ones are still very much so alive and have very, big opinions about how she's portrayed.
Yeah. God, that's, oh man. Okay, so we're gonna brainstorm and
yes,
let's do this. I think true crime is a dark place because it takes the fiction away and says you're rubbernecking and you're looking at the car wreck and I know that place. Like I feel it. Like it's a cold, chilly place to tap. But when you do, you feel it, and it feels like there's something very, I don't know. You do feel the like the kind of like the veil between you and mortality is just like a little bit thinner, and I don't know. Like it's seductive. That
it is. It's terrifying, especially when you're like home alone, or if my husband's out of town. Like that's when I'm like, okay, doggy, you sleep with me, because that's like with the BTK where he like was in her closet or something. I don't know. Like I feel bad I feel bad for the victims, because they passed away, but also for the family members, like, when you have a super famous person like that, and then I feel bad just talking about it passively, being like, it's not the guy in the closet. See, just the same, you can't stop it.
But I mean, I can name all the serial killers. I can see their faces. But if it came down to the victims, it would just be like MTV style, quick cut kind of, like the black and white photocopy. Like we don't give them the same voice. They don't have a voice. So. Yeah.
Okay, we should. Okay, I'm sorry. That's a terrible note to end.
Bad touch.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, I am curious, like, since I feel like in the U.S. we're pretty much still in lockdown. Some people might not be, like, abiding by it, but we have. What have you been doing, like, with that time? Are you just I know you finished your, well, that's the last book. Like, that's fast. Whisper Down the Lane. Like, that's the one that you finished and then it's going to come out.
It's coming out, yeah.
That's speedy for book time.
It was. I started it. I mean, I had like a year. You work on it, you submit it, and you wait, and some time goes by, and then they're like, "Oh, can you turn this in a week?" And then you're just like, "Okay," like it's the rush to wait. But what you're talking about with like the hand in too many buckets. It's good to have like, you work on this, you send it off, then maybe I'll work on a comic book, maybe I'll work on a screenplay. There's a certain kind of rotation of projects. I've been very, very fortunate. I'd say blessed of like being able to keep busy in these very uncertain times. A lot of it, hopefully we'll see the light of day. But it is like I've been writing a lot, which is good. And raising two boys with my wife and trying to keep them, kempt and haircut and not too feral. But this is it. We're on lockdown. So
yeah.
Virtual and hairy.
I'm entertained by your boys and their interpretation of Santa.
We call him Jacked Santa. That's a jacked up Santa.
I want that Santa to come here. And then, so where's the best place for people to follow you? I feel like with authors, it's like everybody says Twitter, but you're in more places than just Twitter.
I do the Twitter. I do Instagram. Facebook. I think those are the three. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Clay McLeod is the handle. I have a website, claymcleodchapman.com. Yeah, I'd say if you're looking for something to read, the remaking is I think really cool. And then Whisper Down the Lane comes out April 6th.
Yes. Oh, and another thing, that I would like to tell people is just to also add it to your GoodReads list.
Yeah.
Because that does make a huge difference in terms of supporting people.
Beautiful.
Although GoodReads gets dirty when you go down to the comments. That's when you're like, I don't think have you written a book? Because it's hard. Though you can't think that way.
I'm weak. I go, I look, I read them all. I got to do it. I can't, if it's out there and I know it's out there, I have to see it. So,
usually I feel like it is kind of healthy to do it because you just realize, okay, this wasn't for you. That's how you get through it.
Yes. It's the, find your 10 people. That's all I got to say. Find your 10 number ones.
That is a beautiful note to end on. Thank you so much, Clay, for your time. I'm so glad we got to talk finally.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much to Clay for being the first of letting me record interviews with. He was very kind. I was like, okay, if this messes up, are you cool? And he was, of course, super cool. That's why he's on the show. So go check out his book, Whisper Down the Lane, that comes out April 6th with Quirk. He is a Quirk cousin. you know I love everything that Quirk puts out, not only because they put out Bites of Terror, but because they really put out fun, weird books that are different than anybody else's. Okay, so at the end of every show, I want to recommend a movie that Jimmy and I have checked out, because every night we sit down and watch a movie. And so this week, also, it'll make ending the show less awkward. I'm sure there's a cooler way to do that. There are plenty of people who have mastered ending a show, but this is how I want to end it now. Psh, psh, psh. Well, I'm sure I'll probably end it with a cat at some point. So this week, I want to recommend to you The Cruise. It is a documentary that I believe we watched on Mubi. That's a really cool service if you haven't heard of it before. Very good for finding weird and strange films like The Cruise. So in this documentary, you follow around a New York tour guide on one of those double-decker buses. And let me tell you, if he was still doing that today, I would absolutely get on his bus because the thoughts that come out of his head are beyond me and so entertaining. And it's one of those documentaries, when it gets really quiet, you're like, okay, I can kind of zone out here for a second. But then he'll say something and be like, what? That's basically what I said the whole time. So go check out The Cruise. Right away, Jimmy was like, I'm getting this DVD, no Blu-ray. But still available if you want to find it. On that note, I just started a different Instagram feed from Cuddles and Rage, where you can kind of check out what I'm reading and watching and listening to. It's called Liz Loves Physical Media, with underscores in between. Just look at the show notes. So on Liz Loves Physical Media, I share the weird and obscure. So if you like words like Vinegar Syndrome, Criterion, Arrow, Waxwork, or Death Waltz, then that will definitely interest you, just considering if you have similar tastes. I started that separate Instagram because I felt like maybe the Cuddles in Your Age crowd wouldn't be into something like Frankenhooker. But if they are, then they have a place to be. So go check that out if you're interested in more media recommendations. I feel like it falls into line with the type of people that I interview on here and just interests that inspire me through art in general. Have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to share more of our guests with you and do the video thing. I've become really into my shirts. I was very proud of the Suspiria Goblin concert shirt horror theme going on. All right. I will see you soon. Bye.